Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bearded Robot podcast with me, Peter, and my awesome co-host, Danny.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Notice the cheeky awesome I dropped in there, by the way. Didn't see that on the agenda,
thank
did
you. I appreciate that.
How you doing? All right? How you feeling after the PS5 reveal yesterday?
Yeah, it was good. It kind of left you. I'm not really sure. I'm in kind of two minds about the whole thing, really. So I'm sure, obviously, we'll discuss further on that. But yeah, I'm feeling quite good after it, to be honest. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, same. I think it was a typical kind of reveal, which again we'll go into. I think it was a typical reveal where, a lot of the answers already, and there's nothing too specific that kind of comes out that kind of really shocks you. But you just hope for a decent conference with some exciting gameplay and stuff like that, which I think we did get. We'll jump into it. I think the first thing I kind of wanted to kind of go into a little bit before we properly start talking about the actual PS5 reveal itself. I thought it'd be good if we ran over our kind of history with kind of PlayStation, and naturally I hate being the type of people that compare Xbox and PlayStation all the time. I don't really get into that, and I'm not really interested in getting into that, and I know you feel the same.
No, of course.
Yeah, but I think what would be good is just give a bit of a history of what consoles we've bought. I mean, both myself and Dan are typical console players. We've never really been PC players apart from dipping into the classic games like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. But generally speaking, we've been console players.
I'd like to say that as well. We're not really typical. Say, for example, we're not an Xbox fanboy or a PlayStation fanboy or anything like that. We both own actually both of them, and I think that really it comes down to sort of things like the games and that we're not really we're happy to jump ship if need be, as we'll say in our history,
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly why I wanted to kind of say that and kind of talk about our history, because I just wanted to give a bit of a kind of just to kind of confirm that we are very open. So I mean, I'll just to kind of kick things off. Just so for me, I mean, my first console was a NES. That is the first console I was bought by my granddad. He bought me a NES, my cousin, and he bought himself a NES for when we were at theirs. So he bought 3 Nintendo Entertainment Systems, one Christmas. And it's only looking back now that I realise that must have cost him a bomb. But that's what kind of got me into gaming, and naturally I went into the Super Nintendo phase, and then into the Mega Drive, and then moving on to PlayStation, and then PlayStation 2, then Xbox 360, and then Xbox One. Now the interesting thing is I did jump ship like a lot of people did after the PlayStation 2. I went to Xbox 360 instead of going to PS3. Now I probably, to be honest with you, would have bought a PS3, but I was working at a company at the time in the games industry, and they were launching they were a distributor and were launching the Xbox 360. So I was really sold on the marketing and kind of that kind of stuff, and I was able to get it a little bit cheaper. And as we know, which we'll delve into a little bit later, these consoles can be quite pricey. So that is kind of where I have. That's kind of been my path, to be honest, my gaming kind of path. And I like to say sprinkled in there was some PC gaming, i.e. Age of Empires, The Sims, and obviously World of Warcraft.
You spent a lot of time on World of Warcraft.
Yeah, World of Warcraft, I spent days, and we're talking like, I think it was something like 120 days I'd done on World of Warcraft. So there was a point where I was playing it for a couple of years, and then that was massive.
Yeah, that's probably rookie numbers, though, to be fair, in the World of Warcraft sense.
Absolutely, but for a console player, it's obviously quite a lot, considering that's been my, console's always been my gaming preference, really. And certainly now being a kind of grown ass man and kind of living, you know, with a wife and a baby and stuff like that, you kind of have it is kind of like a little bit of a mini media kind of system as well, you know, which you and your household will use for other things as well. I've got to be careful there because, by the way, I was really against, you know, how the Xbox One pitched itself as an all-in-one entertainment system.
Oh yeah.
All that bollocks. But anyway, you know, it's hard to constantly keep up with PCs, upgrade them, buy new ones. I wouldn't have a clue how to make them. So console player, born and bred, still am, will always be, and it's why a console reveal is so exciting to me. So yeah, so I'll pass it over to you. Kind of, you know, I know you've got a very similar path to me, but be interested to hear your kind of early days as well.
Yeah, no, I'm very similar. I started off on the Mega Drive, so I was a bit of a Sega fanboy at that point. And then a friend of ours got the PlayStation sort of recently when it come out, and it was amazing because obviously it was disc based and it was revolutionary in that. And the only disc based games before that were all PC, and we never had a good enough PC, you know, peasant family and all that. And I remember one Christmas, I bought Crash Bandicoot on the PS1 because I suspected that we were getting it for Christmas because because we had asked for it, both me and my brother, and my parents done the classic thing of where they went after we'd opened all our presents, they were like, "Oh, sorry, they didn't have any PlayStations," you know, and then we were quite bummed out on that, especially because I had already preemptively bought a game for it. And then, of course, they revealed it later on that day, and it was a monumental occasion, you know, and all that. And yeah, and since, you know, after that, it was PlayStation 2, which I loved. I loved my PlayStation 2. I played it endlessly, especially because it was backwards compatible with the PS1. So I played like Metal Gear and Final Fantasies and all that from that era. But yeah, I worked at the same company that Peter worked at in the gaming industry, and I actually they did a raffle, and I actually won an Xbox 360. So they kind of actually forced my hand almost, you know.
Yeah, why are you going to go and buy a PlayStation 3 when, you know, you've just got yourself a free Xbox 360? Absolutely.
Exactly. And of course, back in them days, you know, I'm talking like, I don't know, must have been about 17 or something like that. I didn't have the money to go and buy myself another console, you know, kind of thing. So I actually lucked out. I don't even think I could afford the first one. So I actually lucked out. But yeah, then I went on to, you know, I didn't get a PlayStation 3 because the PlayStation 3 is a bit of a weird one. It was, yeah, I know a lot of PlayStation fanboys love it, and that's fine. You know, it's got a lot of good games on it, and we have played a lot of those good games. You know, just like one-offs, playing it around a friend's house or something. But yeah, I don't know why there was something that just didn't do it for me. The Xbox 360, in my eyes, at the time, was far superior. Had a lot better games on it and stuff. I'm sure I'll get torched for that, but that was just my opinion of it, and that made me jump over to Xbox One. But in the end, Xbox One wasn't enough to hold me down because I then did go and buy myself a PlayStation 4. So
yeah,
at this stage, you know, I could go either way, really.
Yeah, and I'm very similar. I mean, I've had an Xbox 360 and Xbox One, and I actually recently bought an Xbox, sorry, a PlayStation 4, with the attitude of, you know, if whatever one I decide to buy, because let's face it, you're not going to buy both. Who can afford that?
No.
Whatever one you decide to buy at the end of the year, whether it's the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, it's you got to kind of ask yourself, which one am I going to buy, and then I can probably lose the previous generation. You might even be able to lose both, to be honest, but you'd probably want to keep one. So, like, for example,
Yeah.
if I buy the PS5, then I kind of figured I could just sell the PS4 that I bought, and that money can kind of go towards it. And similarly with my Xbox One S that I've got, I could sell that, to fund the Xbox One X, or part fund it, obviously. And then I would then keep the PlayStation 4 to be able to play previous games and games that I haven't actually got around to playing yet. So yeah, I think that there's kind of a kind of good history there, for us both. But in recent history, probably safe to say that we've lent more towards Xbox and stuff. And I would say as well, you didn't quite touch on it, but I know you'd agree with this, is that it does come down to social as well, because you've got to remember.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, of course. So you've got to remember that, if you buy a PlayStation 4 and all of your friends buy an Xbox Series X, then, you've got no one to game with. I mean, you can game with randoms, but,
Yeah, it's
for
not the
me,
same, is it?
it's not. And for me, playing with your kind of mates, and create, for example, during this lockdown, it's been pretty amazing. I've still been able to connect with my mates quite a lot, because we've been
Probably
gaming.
more so, actually. I think we've actually put a bit more effort into hanging out, because we have been kind of locked in without being able to go out and see people. And
exactly. And I wouldn't disagree with that. I think that, I mean, we've played through the whole of Dark Souls 3 together, as we mentioned on previous episode. Go listen if you haven't. And yeah, like, I think for me, it comes down to social a lot, and I will be a close eye on what my mates do.
Yeah, that is a great shout, actually, because I think actually that is what tipped my hand from going from Xbox 360 to Xbox One. Because at the time I was in a Call of Duty clan, and we were in league games and doing this, that, or the other. And the actual league migrated to Call of Duty Ghosts, which had just released on the Xbox One, and all my friends were getting it as well, the other people in the clan. So yeah, again, my hand always seems to get forced, it seems like. I've only just realised as well,
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder what this year is going to be for you. Maybe you'll branch.
Yeah, maybe I'll have a choice.
You're going to go
maybe
nomad.
I will.
Yeah.
You make the decision for me, Pete.
Yeah, I will. Don't worry. Yeah, but I think, and actually, we both had, me and Danny have both had conversations. I mean, after we watched the conference last night over Xbox Live with each other, and we were discussing the kind of the console we want to get. So I think that's something that we'll kind of bring up a bit later. But yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit of an idea of kind of how the episode's going to go today. We want to cover everything that happened last night, because it was really exciting. And but by the way, I say last night, at time of recording, it's the 12th of June. So last night was at 9 p.m. UK time was when the PS5 reveal happened. So if you're kind of listening a bit later on, then that that might make a bit more sense. But
yeah, it's 2020 as well, just in case you're listening to this years later on our YouTube channel or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but maybe someone's listening to it for the next gen and they're getting really confused, like, why are they calling it a PS5 when it's a PS6? Anyway, so I thought it'd be good to kind of mix it up here, that we're not going that kind of ascending order from last night. We'll kind of talk about the PS5 reveal first, and the actual PS5 itself, the console itself, and then we want to rattle through the games, because there were so many games kind of announced, and whether they looked amazing or didn't look that great or whatever, we still want to cover them in some capacity. So if you haven't watched the conference from last night, then we've got you covered in some capacity in this episode today. And then, you can go and watch and make your kind of own mind up afterwards. But after that, we'll talk about all of the games announced, but we will save the best still last. So the games that we considered the most exciting, the big announcements, the one that really, the ones that really kind of made us go, wow, here we go.
There's a lot of games that we can only talk about, we can only touch on, because again, they only showed us so much, that we can't really go into too much detail about it, because we don't know ourselves,
Yeah, exactly. Plus, we might have thought they looked a bit shit, but don't tell the developers that, 'cause that's savage. And yeah, so that, and then we'll kind of talk about the console that we think that we'll be getting. Will it be the Xbox Series X? Will it be the PS4? You'll find out. So stick with us. So yeah, the actual reveal itself. So obviously it was kind of building up, wasn't it, throughout the whole conference? They kept kind of, in between sections, they would show kind of like a technical kind of look at, kind of a circle or an X or whatever, or cross and bloody ball or whatever the bloody hell it's called. Every day's different. Yeah, bucks. Yeah, three-sided shape. No, just but yeah, no. So they kept kind of showing all the little in joke there. By the way, sorry for nobody would have fucking got that at all.
No.
But anyway, so they kind of had all these kind of nice kind of technical kind of graphic-y looking things which look quite cool. Didn't really show anything, and then
No, they showed us the controller as well at
yes,
one point,
of course,
which
yeah,
obviously we can touch in further. But of course, the certain look of it as well kind of gave you maybe a slight hint of what was coming almost.
yeah,
as well.
exactly, yeah, exactly. So they've gone, obviously towards the end of the conference, they actually showed the thing itself, and they've gone for this kind of white premium kind of feel. Because it was always going to be black or white. I mean, let's face it, that was always going to be the case, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting as well because PlayStation has always been black. It's always predominantly been black. I know you can get white versions of it, but the actual main one has been black. And Xbox kind of done a lot of white because obviously the 360 was predominantly white, and of course you've got the Xbox One is black, but the Xbox One S is white, and they've kind of switched between them, don't they? Really.
They do, but so does Sony. They had the PlayStation Slimline, or was it the PS2 Slimline? One of them, I think it was PlayStation. It was the Slimline version, was literally just the size of a disc.
Oh yeah, right.
So it was quite it was almost like a Discman kind of looking thing. It was really strange, but yeah, regardless, it was always going to be black or white. They've opted for white, and So when I first saw it, I kind of looked at it and was like, oh, okay. I didn't. I mean, I didn't really expect it to look like that, but I don't really know what I expected it to look like. I'm not sure quite how I feel about it.
No, because the PlayStation 3, other than being a big bulgy, had very similar very similar sort of traits as the PlayStation 2. And the PlayStation 4 did still look like the PlayStation 3 in a sense almost. Whereas they've kind of really gone completely different this time round.
They have, and they've got they've got these kind of that kind of white wings up the side, and then it's black in the middle, and it looks like it's got kind of blue LEDs lining the kind of the inner of it as well. I mean, I would say, again, not to be all kind of too comparison-y, but we can have a bit of fun with the look and feel. I actually personally prefer the look of the Xbox Series X. It literally doesn't matter, to be honest, about the look and feel, because it comes down to the games, it comes down to the console.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, neither console is going to go with my wife's decor, so I'm going to have get it in the fucking ear from that,
Yeah, I don't think that would go with any decor, to be honest, unless you're in fucking Mass Effect or something. But generally speaking, it looks okay. I wasn't blown away by it. I was shocked by it, but I wasn't blown away by it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. I wasn't blown away. It was quite still impressive. It's almost a bit of a risk if you do something that's away from the norm. You run the risk of having the piss taken out of you. And to be fair, it's not too bad. You mentioned that cracked me up when it was revealed that you said the collar bits reminded you of like Harry Hill, and that proper made me laugh. And of course, it didn't take long for the memes to start coming in. We've already had some posted on our Facebook page of one of it looking like the tower, Mordor, the tower in Mordor with the eye above it, and another
tower, yeah, fantastic. That was Neil, wasn't it?
Yeah. And he posted up another one, and he posted up another one of like a duck bill, so it looked like a duck's beak kind of thing going on. And that's just the start of it. I'm sure there are hundreds now already on the internet.
There will be, and there will be, and there always has, to be honest, with any of these kind of technical, basically anything that's getting released, whether it's kind of a new skybox, a router, whatever, any of these kind of pieces of hardware, they will always kind of be ripped. But
I think Xbox have kind of played it a bit safe, if I'm honest. Xbox have gone really safe, other than making it kind of like I don't know, like a tower almost,
A
like
tower block, a
square
tower block in
towers.
England.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, but really slick, like maybe England in the year 25, 50, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we won't dwell on the look and feel too much, I guess, because it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't really matter. It won't make any bloody difference of what console we buy. However, what I will say is I thought that the accessories looked awesome. I really,
Mm,
really love them. So just to recap, we've got a controller, we've got a camera, we've got a headset, we've got a docking station, and I think that was it.
oh, there's a remote as well.
The remote, of course, the media remote as well. Yeah, exactly. And they all look pretty sick. I thought the headset looked wicked. You know, the over-ear
Yeah,
headset. Usually these consoles come with a really cheap, crappy
yeah,
little
wank one.
headset. Yeah, a little.
I'm pretty sure the PS4 one was absolutely dog. I
Oh, yeah.
think every single PlayStation 4 person that I spoke to who got it hated it.
Yeah, and the Xbox One was the same. You know, you just had this little bit of plastic that went over your head, and then you just had the ear bit, and there's just a tiny little
Yeah.
bit that come
It's
round.
the bare minimum, isn't it, really,
Yeah,
to obviously help keep the price down, I suppose.
it is, and that's why I'm impressed. And don't get me wrong, we've still not seen how the bundles look yet. I mean, I'm presuming that won't come with it. I mean, that'd be awesome if it did. I mean, it should, but I personally think that when you buy a console, you should be buying the entire media kit with it, you know, and
Yeah.
the entire social kit with it. I mean, I don't know. Actually, that's a question. Actually, what do you think? Do you think that do you think those accessories will come bundled with the consoles, or are they definitely going to be just
I,
accessories?
I don't know. It's a hard one, that is, because I can't imagine that they would. But then why reveal them in such a way alongside the console? Obviously, the controller, completely understand, but you'd never get more than one controller, is it?
No,
Because they're like fucking 50 quid a pop, you know. But and the headphones alone, they probably, you know, you're probably looking about 30 quid just for them.
maybe even
Um,
more. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so it really does. I mean, why would they bother revealing that if it wasn't going to be in the bundle? You know.
True, true, true. Well, time will tell on that. But the more I
I
think
mean,
about it, actually, I think.
going back. Oh,
Sorry, go on.
sorry. Go on, mate.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the more I think about it, the more I think that they will just be accessories, because I can't ever remember a console coming with a charging station, and a media remote and a camera and stuff like that. Apart from the Kinect, obviously a compulsory buy, which they later changed their mind on.
Yeah.
You know, let's not go into that. Fucking hell.
No.
But yeah, sorry, go on. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say the controller itself is kind of quite unique, because obviously they've
I love the controller.
other than the touchpad from the PS4, and of course the little light in the back. It's kind of very similar. I feel I've always felt the PlayStation controllers are very similar to like the PS2 era and the PS3 era. They've all been very similar. You know, Xbox has kind of changed it up, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But PlayStation have kind of, you know, they've got this motto that if it's not broken, don't change it. And the current controller does look very different from
Yeah.
previous iterations.
I actually think you've been quite generous there. I think that the PS2, the PS3, the PS4 controllers have practically been identical, and quite frankly, I don't like them. I hate them. You know, I remember playing the PS2, and you know, it was a good controller because it was the best controller that had kind of been released at the time. But as soon as you got your hands on an Xbox 360 controller, you were like, oh my god, this is weighty. You know, where the analog sticks are located are better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the Xbox One controller is the Xbox One S controller actually is the best controller I've played with. It's sleek, it's white, it looks like the Xbox the One version, but it's got a standard Xbox One version, but it's got these kind of, you know, slightly dotted grips around the back of it, and it feels really good. But so I was really happy to see that they've designed a brand new controller, and I actually think the PS5 controller looks really, really cool. I really,
Yeah. We'll have to see how it feels in hand, of course, because as you were saying, yeah, you've reminded me now. I remember back in the day, the PS3 controller, I always felt it was too small. You know,
Yeah.
obviously I was smaller when the PS2 was out, but maybe as I grew, the controller should have grew with it. So it did feel like I was using a little Hobbit's controller.
Yeah, and
Um,
you know, over the last few years, your hands have got massive as well. So
and yeah, cheers for that. But yeah, so I agree that I mean the PS4 controller is a lot better than PS3, but again, yeah, it doesn't. You're right, it doesn't feel as slick as the Xbox One. Maybe it's because we have played the Xbox One more and gotten used to it. Who knows? But really, this new one could be a winner here.
yeah, I think so. And you know, Xbox is arguably now doing what PlayStation did, and they're kind of going, well, hang on, we've got a leading controller here. The PS2 was a leading great controller. They kind of kept with that kind of general style, and Xbox are now kind of doing that. They're sticking to their style, and the new Xbox controller, the Xbox Series X controller, from what we've seen so far, does look pretty identical to the previous couple of consoles. So we might
Mm.
be saying the same when if the PS5 controller really kind of takes a step up and is just awesome. But people often forget about the controllers. I really think that, because when you play an Xbox One compared to a PlayStation 4, I personally can really feel the difference. I really don't like how your hands sit less naturally on a PlayStation controller. Again, that's just my opinion. I really don't like where I've got tiny little hobbit thumbs, and I find it quite hard to reach over and grab both those analog sticks. I can't, especially when the analog stick these days is much more important than a D-pad. You want that as close as possible, for better kind of reflex as possible. Again, that's just me, but I really think it's cool. I mean, the way I'm talking about it, it sounds like I'm gonna marry it, but I haven't actually even held it. But it does look good. I'm looking forward to giving it a go.
Yeah, it could be really small for all we know. It could be bastardly small and actually really awkward to use. It could be. I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong. The N64 controller is fantastic, but at the end of the day, it's a bastard thing if you look at it. You remember that side grip that you had that had another controller on it, another analog stick up there. It was an absolute bastard
Yeah,
design, but
yeah.
it worked at the end of
It
the day.
does. Did you ever see, just on the you just reminded me, just on the game, is the GameCube controller you're talking about, wasn't it?
No, the N64 one, the one
Oh, the
before it.
N64. Oh, just on the GameCube controller. Did you ever see like this thing that was going around saying you've been holding the GameCube controller wrong the whole time? Have you ever?
No.
So basically, like the GameCube controller. Hang on, was it the GameCube controller? I'm
The
having
N64 one was the one where it was like three
that.
legs.
Sorry, that is the one I'm talking about. Yeah, sorry, ignore me. That is the one I'm talking about. So people basically, it transpired that you were supposed to be holding it with your right hand on the right hand side and your left hand holding the middle bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, and then
who held
it's
it like
weird because you have to kind of like let go to use these buttons. It is
that?
really
Yeah.
awkward. I mean, Nintendo have kind of had a habit of bringing out bastard controllers. To be fair, they've kind of been forgotten in this sense.
Yeah,
Obviously where we're talking about PlayStation, Xbox, but I'd like to make this quick point now. Obviously, you've got the N64 controller, which had the three legs, and it was a bit of a bastard. I've got to be honest. I know it's well received. Everyone loves the console. Don't get me wrong, I do too. But the controller is a bit of a bastard. Then after that, it was the GameCube that had some fucking bastard buttons. I was just about to drop a C bomb there because I was so angry thinking about one of the buttons. One of the shoulder buttons is absolutely diabolical to use, and then after that. It was the Wii trying to play something like Mario holding that little thing sideways. That didn't work. And then you had the Wii U with the tablet. And then after that, you had the Switch, and which is fine on a controller. But you think about you're using when you play a two-player and you're using those little bastard things and for Mario Kart. And yeah, it's just not worth it.
No idea. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, let's move on to something that I was a little disappointed about. I mean, I know when we were talking about it last night, you said no chance that they're gonna do it, but there was obviously no price point left last night. I think I kind of settled on the fact that they probably have an idea about how much they want the PS5 to cost, but they're kind of waiting for Microsoft and Sony are waiting for each other to blink first. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
who's gonna announce their price point first?
They've been doing this for years, haven't they? This
They
whole
have.
kind of like waiting to see who goes first. Obviously,
Yeah.
back in the Xbox One, before Xbox One came out, they did the whole, oh, it's a media entertainment system, and that got slated. And then PlayStation come out afterwards and had their slogan as like, for the players. And that really was kind of like, look, we know what we're doing, yeah, we're not going to do what you're doing, you know, kind of thing. And they've always kind of done that. They've always, like, even with the PlayStation Plus games, they've kind of waited for Xbox to reveal what they've got coming out in the month, and then suddenly they've brought out all these brilliant games. Oh yeah, what's that? You want The Last of Us remastered? Yeah, go on, mate. I don't care if it come out last week. You can have it for free. You know, they just always try and updo them, but just purely because Xbox kind of dig themselves in these holes that PlayStation just look like they're absolutely walking on water.
Yeah, they do. They look like they're on the ball when actually maybe they are being a bit reactive sometimes. And I think, you know, there's a couple of reasons that they also said launching later this year. I mean, they if this was E3, by the way, let's just say that this should have been held at E3 naturally because of the COVID situation. It was changed to a conference, which is fine. Now, if this was at E3 and they had done their big PS5 reveal at E3, they definitely would have put a price point and a release date on it, in my opinion. So I think that probably they're saying that all they're saying at the moment is launching later this year. I think that what they're probably doing is looking at the COVID situation. We may need to push um, we may need to push the launch of this due to, you know, obviously, you know, mass delivery and stuff like that. Naturally, that's going to be a big thing. You know, obviously how the economy is at the moment. Are people going to be wanting to spend out 500-600 quid on a brand new console if we're still in lockdown and people are losing their jobs and all kind of that stuff? So there is a massive reason why they've not done it, and I do actually predict personally that it won't even launch this year. I've just unless things with the COVID situation really improve, I can't see them launching it this year, and it may even be pushed to next year, and then they'll put a release date, and then they'll put a price point. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that things kind of start to clear up over the next few months, and then we get a release date slapped down, we get a price point slapped down, and then Microsoft come out and do the same with theirs, and then we can actually start looking for Christmas as, you know, getting one of these consoles. That's where we want to be.
Yeah, we've got to plan ahead because obviously Christmas we've got to be buying all presents for our families, and that is not the best time to be spending, I don't know, 500, 800 pound on a brand new console at the exact same time. You know, it's it's difficult.
Yeah, and the more important, I mean, that's for us. We're grown ass men with jobs, you know. You'll have teenagers that want the new console, and their parents need a fighting chance of kind of saving up to buy their kid this. I mean, if you're the sort of person that buys your kid a console on release, then you're going to be spending a lot of money. And as you said there, the price could easily be between 500 and 800 quid. I mean, we're talking about with the Xbox Series X and the PS5, you know, the two most technically advanced consoles ever to be released. And they're certainly boasting that. I mean, Xbox Series X are actually boasting that theirs will be the most powerful console ever released. And I think technically, I mean, I'm not really good with technical specs, but there's a lot of people that have kind of looked into the technical specs of both consoles, and that is actually true. It will be the stronger console. So they
I got
sent me a lot of money.
I got sent a thing earlier actually from a friend who had the comparison of the two side by side, and it had all the sort of the technical details there. But again, I'm not very good with that kind of stuff. So it just kind of a bit over my head, like, oh, it's got 12 teraflops and you know, this, that, or the other. And I'm not really sure if that's good or not. I imagine it is, you know, but that's not really what I'm looking for in that sense. But it will be interesting to see in that regard, to see which is obviously going to be the more superior one, but that does of course increase the price bracket.
It does, and let's not forget as well that, again, technically the PS4, when it was announced, there was no hiding that the PS4 was a more powerful console than the Xbox One, and clearly it has sold more. But let's not forget that didn't deter us. You know, we still bought the console, and I've played both, and personally, I don't see much difference. But there will be people that split hairs, and I do appreciate that.
For me, it's mainly the exclusives. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day. I think as well that is the main reason I bought a PS5 a couple of years after buying my Xbox One, was purely because I wanted to play some of these brilliant exclusives that have come out on it, and I'd always borrowed it off a friend or whatnot to just play that one game, you know, kind of thing. So yeah, for us, really, it will come down to the games at the end of the day.
It will. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so there was an announcement as well that they will be releasing a discless version. Don't know why I didn't just call it digital version. A digital of the console, as well as a disc version. So yeah, standard kind of version will I presume be the one where you can actually put discs in, and a digital version will presumably be a cheaper version that you can only use for digital games. Now,
Yeah, you'd
I
like to think it's cheaper.
you'd like to no, I think it will, but I think generally speaking, when digital versions of consoles have been released in the past, I think the Xbox did one, didn't they? I think they have been they've been able to put them out a little bit cheaper. I think that's right. But anyway, I've got a couple of issues with this. Now, I am a massive fan of digital games. I like to have a digital library set up. I'm actually I'm not actually massive on discs anymore. I have nowhere to put them. I don't necessarily want them. What I'd quite like to do is have a digital library which I can take with me to any console I want, and more importantly, I can just always have in the background to install without the hassle of putting discs in. That's just how kind of I prefer it. In a similar way that I prefer Spotify these days to kind of anything else. And however, I do have an issue with digital, and that is price points are too high. You can often I'll buy a game for like 50, 60 quid, and then you'll tell me, oh yeah, I just bought it for 40 quid off of Argos, you know, and I'll kind of think, yeah, that's pretty frustrating because I paid 20 quid more, and
Yeah,
yeah,
they don't seem to drop either the prices digitally. Of course, there's always deals going on and this, that, or the other. But when games come out, I mean, Last of Us comes out next week, yeah,
yeah.
and that is $54.99 digitally.
Wow, yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. And you know that you'll be able to buy it in a in a supermarket or something like that for cheaper. It's that simple. Even if it's 5 quid, even if it's 10 quid, it could be 15, 20 quid. You know, it will be cheaper. That is the reality of it. It's not going to cost 55, 60 quid in all retailers. You know, it is going to be cheaper somewhere, and that really does annoy me. But I guess that it's part of the reason that is the case is because publishers don't want to piss off their retailers or their independents, and their stores. I do completely get all of that. Again,
moving forward, it will eventually become digital. Everything be digital. Of course, you can see that coming a mile away, as it is on PC. You know, Steam, obviously, and the EA one. And that just really kind of, it just kind of works. I think that you're right. It is nice to have a digital library. I like going on my Xbox One and looking at my game list, and I've got like 210 games on that list. Now, if I had 210 boxes of games, that would be a bastard. Where am I going to put them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that there's that, and then on the other side, the second point that I'm not massive on digital consoles, or the idea of digital consoles, is simply because the storage. You know, like you can install 4 games, and your terabyte hard drive can pretty much be, I don't know, 60% full, and you're kind of thinking, well, hang on. So I can only really have 5 games active on my console, 5 or 6 games active on my console at any one time without having to uninstall everything. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't lose your saves. It's all cloud focused and stuff like that. So that's fine. But having to, like, for example, if I wanted to install, another game coming out, maybe Cyberpunk later in the year, whatever, it might mean that maybe suddenly I have to uninstall something else, and that really kind of irritates me, because I don't want to always have to do that. I want to kind of have my games kind of pretty much ready to play, and I do think that that will improve maybe when streaming services get better, because naturally is we're gonna move into a place one day in the future, we hope, where games will be just streamed. You know, you'll buy a game and then you'll be able to stream that game. So therefore, there will be no installation, there will be no loading. So yeah, you know, that definitely for the future, all over it. I am a little bit unsure and a little bit concerned about buying a digital version for next generation, because if I stitch myself up and buy a digital version and then all of a sudden everyone's buying discs for 40-50 quid and I'm having to pay 60 to 80 quid for a game, then I'm going to feel a little sore about that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree with that. Yeah, and that's just reminded me, actually, this is something we haven't mentioned here and that we don't have on our agenda, so I do apologise for this, Peter. But something that wasn't announced was some kind of like headset peripheral, you know, like the PSV. I can't remember his bloody name now. You know, the headset, the VR thing that we got going on. There's nothing like that at the minute, is there? With this, there was no sort of nothing touching on that. Of course, the technology, like I think what you saying about the technology not being there for streaming services at this moment has just reminded me that it's a very similar kind of situation with VR and things like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I mean, could that be, dare I say it, because virtual reality is quite niche and a little bit of a flash in the pan technology? I mean, do any true gamers that you know are really that bothered about it? I mean, are they finding out that actually maybe this is quite too expensive to make and we just simply won't sell enough of them? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they might just do that later on down the line. But I was quite surprised, actually, that they haven't announced anything to go alongside it. You know, like a bundle that includes the new VR. Maybe they haven't working on a new VR headset at the minute. You know?
Yeah, I think it's very true. You know, if VR was going to be their main focus, then it would have been one of the main focuses of last night. So I think you're absolutely right. Yeah,
and the end of this generation of PlayStation has focused quite heavily on the VR as well. You know, they've kind of pushed it. Their VR headset is really superior to a lot of others, and they've done quite a good job with it. But yeah, it's another thing that's just more questions than answers, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, and I guess the last thing was something you said that kind of made me laugh last night was, can this thing be laid on its side? And I think you found out that it can, right?
Yeah. A friend of mine sent a picture with because it seemed like a stand. It's really weird. It's like if you imagine a PlayStation 4, but then it's got like a little base that it slots into, very similar to the Switch, I believe. That's got a little base that it can that holds it up, or like the Wii, if you remember, it had a little thing.
Yes,
a little plastic stand, little circular thing, and this has got a very similar looking thing. And to me, that was making me think, oh, maybe it can't lay down. It's also because of its collars, the way they sort of curve up. It also makes me wonder: is it going to sort of be wobbly if it was laying on its side like it's not supposed to be? But a friend of mine did send me a picture showing it actually physically on its side, so that is good for me because I haven't got the room to stand it up somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and with the Xbox Series X, you hope that lands on its side as well, because otherwise people are going to mistake it for a bin. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, it's a good point. But generally speaking, the PS5 reveal, I thought actually the reveal itself was really cool. I thought the accessories looked great. Disappointed with no price point. Disappointed with no release date. However, it was nice to finally see it in the flesh, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. I think that was definitely one of the main highlights of the PS5 sort of conference last night. So I'm quite glad that we've covered that first, and obviously we can go into our main highlight of it, because at the end of the day, we're gamers and we want to be playing games. We want to see what games are coming out. That's what we want to be. We want to be looking forward to it. Fine, I can look forward to a new console, but at the end of the day, that's just going to sit there. You know, I'm going to be looking at the screen the whole time.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, wicked. Let's talk about the games then. So yeah, games, like you said, and quite rightly said, I think that they're obviously the most important thing about any conference to do with consoles or anything like that. And as I say, we want to take you through every single game that was announced yesterday or talked about. Whether we dwell on it for too long or not, we certainly will kind of mention kind of what was in all of them. A lot of them were just cinematic or 20-30 seconds worth of gameplay, and you didn't really get much from it. But yeah, we'll certainly go through them anyway. So top of the list, Dan. GTA 5. So quite a funny
Yeah,
one.
that's interesting that they've brought that, because at first, it had GTA sounds and music and stuff, and we were a bit like, what? What's this?
What's
Could
this?
this be GTA 6? Surely not, or some kind of DLC for number 5. But yeah, so it's enhanced version coming out for free
Yeah.
on the next gen. So GTA 5 has actually crossed platform like 3 times
Yes.
now.
Absolutely. They released it at the end of the Xbox 360 lifespan because I believe the Rockstar wanted GTA 5 to be the biggest selling game on that console, which it was. And
Yeah.
they released it right at the very last minute. So they used the ultimate capabilities of the Xbox 360, and it really shows because it still looks amazing now. Now I know that it's kind of been enhanced for Xbox One and stuff like that, but regardless, it's still using an Xbox 360 game.
Yeah, an
And
engine that was
and
made for the 360.
absolutely, and I know you've been playing a lot of GTA Online lately, and when you showed me a bit the other day, it still looks ridiculously good. You know?
Yeah, no, really, really still impressive how good the game looks. Of course, Red Dead come out
Yeah.
only a couple of years ago, and Red Dead obviously still looks amazing as well. But yeah, GTA for a port, essentially a cleaned up port,
Mm.
it is really it's still an impressive game. So it will be interesting to see with how nicer it will look on the new generation.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm looking forward to that. I know that they mentioned GTA Online free at launch. Now, I don't know if it was I don't know if it was GTA 5 that's going to be released on uh, PS5, or if it's just going to be online that's released for free. So you just install GTA Online, for example. I didn't quite pick up on that. I don't know if you did, but
I
regardless,
think it is definitely number 5. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
well, no, that's great. I mean, if that is the case, then wow, and it's going to be an enhanced. In fact, yeah, it would have been because they showed all Trevor, Franklin, Michael, a trailer showing those guys. So of course, that they're not in heavily in the online. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I'll probably get my teeth sunk into online again when I get a
Yeah,
PS.
if it's for
If I
free,
get
you can't argue with it, can you?
no,
Really?
of course not. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's interesting. Albeit, maybe slightly underwhelming. We want to see GTA 6. We're desperate for that. I think it is about time that GTA 6 reared its head soon. So fingers crossed. In
Yeah,
fact,
I think that's a discussion for another day, isn't it?
yeah, well, funny enough, we a bit of a spoiler alert. Me and Dan have been talking about our next episode, and we may well be featuring Grand Theft Auto as a game series. So that lots more to come on GTA 5, potentials of GTA 6 and stuff.
So
Um,
this has helped us, if anything, really.
yeah, for sure. It's kind of fresh talking points. Yeah. Okay, so the next game now. The next game I need to kind of throw in a caveat here because Gran Turismo 7 that's coming out on launch. I personally am not massive on racing games, and I know you ain't either, Dan.
No.
But that's not to say that we're kind of disrespecting the game by kind of glossing over it and not maybe putting it in our top. I know there'll be people that are really looking forward to Gran Turismo 7. I completely get that. So, if there is anybody that's really passionate about it, let us know. Maybe you could join us on a Gran Turismo 7 podcast episode. We'd love to have you on. But Gran Turismo 7, for me, on the face of it, and again, it's a bit like FIFA fans. You'll see I'll see a FIFA trailer, and with all of these kind of now you can do this, now you can do this, we've improved this mode and this mode. Now watching a trailer like that, I would be like, wow, they've done this, they've done that. Now you, Dan, not being a FIFA fan, would just go, well, that just looks like any other fucking FIFA I've seen.
Yeah,
You know,
that is the problem with these games.
it is.
Same with Xbox. They're always doing Forzas. Anytime there's a new console or a new E3 or something, there's a new Forza out. And again, with this trailer for Gran Turismo 7, I feel that they show obviously the graphics of the cars, how shiny they are, and how reflective it all is, and it all does look top notch. But
Yeah.
of course, for me, it's kind of like, yeah, that I feel like I've seen these kind of trailers 100 times before, where it's a shiny car, and that. Of course, if you're big on your cars and you're big on your Gran Turismo, or your racing games in general, it might be for you. Thankfully, they did show a bit of gameplay of it, of actually how it looks in the driver's seat, which I'm quite thankful they did, because it kind of gives you a bit more of an insight of the game, rather than how good the graphics of the car looks.
Exactly, and watching a cinematic for Gran Turismo 4 and a Gran Turismo 7 cinematic, there's no difference. So you're absolutely right. There needs to be gameplay involved there, and there'll be people that know the inners of the technical inners of these cars inside out, and they'll be able to see these whilst watching in first person. And I really appreciate that attention to detail is massive in these types of games, and it's the same for me. If I'm playing a game where I'm particularly invested in the lore of it, or the technical aspect of it, or whatever, I will pick up on these tiny little details. And I'm sure it's the same with Gran Turismo 7. And
Yeah.
regardless,
I think that if you're a fan of these games, then this is going to be one that you're going to be excited about.
that's exactly what I was going to say. Regardless, it's a console seller for a lot of people, so it's going to be a massive game. And
Having said that, though, Pete, right? Funny enough, I bumped into someone earlier today, and he's a PlayStation fan. He's always had PlayStations, and I mentioned he's the type of person who would love Gran Turismo, and I mentioned it to him, and he was a bit like, well, yeah, the last one was actually a bit rubbish. So I don't know if that's a general consensus.
Yeah,
be sure to let us know if the last one wasn't that good.
yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah. So okay, so next up we had. We're not in exact order here because we've moved some of the games to the end of the episode because we really want to.
We kept our favourites.
Yeah, favourites till last, exactly. So there was Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, which is a brand new Ratchet and Clank game. Looked okay. I think we both agreed that the Rift mechanic being used was quite cool. You mentioned it felt quite Portal style, the way that was being used in the combat.
It did look really good, actually, in that regard. I mean, I think if you are a PlayStation fan and you are a Ratchet and Clank fan as well, like you've played all the others, then this is going to be another exciting game for you. The actual travelling through dimensions had a bit of a Rick and Morty feel, almost as if it might have helped inspire it a little. You've got kind of portals, and you can, like, in the middle of battles where you're shooting all enemies and that, you can open up a rift to another part of the battlefield, and you kind of traverse to there to kind of get the upper hand on enemies and stuff. And it's always, funny enough, since Portal come out, it's always been something that I've always thought would be really good in a first person or a third person shoot 'em up. Kind of laying a portal down behind the enemy, getting behind them and shooting it is something that wasn't utilised within the Portal franchise, and it will be cool to see it in action here.
Yeah, that's a really good shout, actually. Yeah, but I mean, it looked okay. So then we had this Project Athia. I think I'm saying that right. So Project Athia, from what I could see, again, really short snippets that we saw, but it looked like quite an artsy adventure game. It had a female lead. I think you mentioned you thought it looked quite cool because it was quite adventure-y, almost Skyrim-esque in some.
Yeah, I mean, the actual start of it was very much hills and Greenland, very similar to the teaser that we got for Elder Scrolls 6 earlier.
I got excited, didn't I, actually?
Yeah, a little too excited, if anything, because then you're always set up for disappointment when it comes up with this completely random game. It had kind of a bit of a look, I hate doing it. I do it all the time now. A bit of a Dark Souls sort of style in some regards, of this sort of dark and fantasy, and there's a lot of dragons and sort of these strange, grotesque monsters. There was like this big floating eye thing, and it looks all right, but again, no gameplay, unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah, no gameplay. Yeah, standard. So there was another game that popped up, which again, we probably wouldn't have paid too much attention to, but then we saw that there were a lot of cats in it, and it was Stray. So Stray coming out in 2021, it said, and it kind of seemed like you kind of said it. You said it felt it was a bit kind of a robot dystopian future type game, right?
Yeah, it looked like a lot of robots obviously living mundane human-esque lives.
Yes.
So there was sort of graffiti on the wall you pointed out saying like RIP humans and
Yes.
stuff like that. And obviously you got robots who look like they're homeless, other ones doing normal day-to-day jobs. Well, there's no humans at all in the trailer. It's a very sort of a sort of futuristic city, almost as if like the humans have died out, possibly from a virus or even a robotic
Oh, don't
uprising,
say
if you
that.
will. Well, it'd be very, very coincidental if it is. And then you've got this cat that's sort of going through it, and it feels like, yeah, I think you're playing as the cat, but again, no gameplay. The sort of, and for me personally, as an avid cat lover, I mean, I've got my cat right here with me. If I can't customize my cat to be a little ginger one, then I'm not buying it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. He had a little backpack on as well, which was cute. So, so then there was a sci-fi game that popped up, which was called Returnal, by the looks of it.
Yeah, that looked interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. So the trailer seemed to kind of show a female lead as she kind of crashed her ship, and she appeared to keep waking up and having to relive a loop, having to relive a slightly different world filled with kind of nightmarish looking monsters, and she was attacking them by way of third person kind of shooter, and it almost had a kind of Mass Effect feel to the
Mm.
shooting.
Yeah, like Mass Effect meets Edge of Tomorrow, that Tom Cruise film.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I couldn't kind of. I wasn't sold on it, to be honest. When the gameplay actually started, I wasn't too sure anymore. Funny enough, I
Yeah, I
was.
felt exactly the same actually.
Yeah, it's like the actual idea of it seemed quite good, and then I saw the gameplay and thought, "Oh, is this going to be a little bit kind of bullet spongy?"
It
Which
looked a bit wooden as well, sort of the way she was moving and shooting. It didn't sell me on that. I mean, at first I was kind of like, this could be something that I could get into. But to be fair though, and I thought of this a lot throughout this, that I have played and completed, I've completed a lot worse games than
oh
some of
yeah.
these that were revealed, and I've seen these games all the way to the end. So it's, I've got a leg to stand on.
No, of course, and like you rightly said, it's hard to judge anything, good or bad, when you've seen so little of it in a reveal. I mean, these are 20-second clips sometimes, and there's you can't make a judgment on a game through that naturally.
But
Um,
first impressions are always important, Peter.
True.
We apparently make up our decision about someone when we meet them after 6 seconds.
Wow.
So sometimes these first impressions of games sometimes do need to go right out of the gate and win in order for us to go, you know what, I am actually going to pick that up.
Well, there you go. There you go. You heard it here first, developers. Get us 6 seconds in. But yeah, no. So there was also the announcement of Sackboy, a big adventure, and basically, obviously, Sackboy is a character from Little Big Planet, which is an older PS3 game, and I think it was PS3. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, it was PS3. I'm not 100%. I was just thinking now, I'm not 100% sure if there is a Little Big Planet on the PS4. I think there is, but I don't think it was as big
No.
as the PS3 versions that come
Yeah,
out.
yeah, and it looked like essentially a 3D platform game, didn't it? So it
Mm.
was, I'm not necessarily sure it's exactly how Little Big Planet was. It's more of Sackboy's adventure. He become quite a selling point for Sony, didn't he?
He
In
was
the
kind
end.
of their logo for the PS3, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
yeah, definitely. He was massive. So it was cool to see another platform game. And then there was the Destruction All Stars, which popped up, which kind of felt like you kind of said, oh, this is kind of essence of Destruction Derby meets Rocket League, which I thought was a really good way to
Yeah,
describe.
we can't. The problem is, whenever there's new things out, the first thing we do as humans is straight away go, "Oh, it's like this meets this." I mean, I've said it already with that Returnal game. Oh, it's like Mass Effect meets Edge of Tomorrow. Oh, it's a bit like Dark Souls. It's a bit like this. We can't help but compare games constantly. So it's the easiest way for people
Yeah,
to kind of understand where we're coming from. So yeah, definitely Destruction Derby meets Rocket League, very arcadey, sort of driving and
yeah.
smashing into each other.
Hmm. Yeah, cool. And then there was the two guys that introduced. I think it was pronounced Kena, which is Kena, and that was again another kind of cartoony adventure game slash platformer. It looked like she was, it's a third person game. You're following her. It's kind of very cutesy, fluffy little animals helping her out and stuff. And
Yeah, it had a very kind of Breath of the Wild aspects, at least when
yeah,
she was in the sort of open areas. But at the same time, so it looked fantasy, but then they kept snipping it back to kind of this person who was living a normal sort of town, sort of living in a townhouse and going about his day normally and going to the toilet and whatnot at the same sort of time that this was happening. So I'm not sure where the two stories sort of coincide or where the game,
yeah,
what kind of
yeah.
setting the game is in.
Think that's right. Yeah, or I think you may have got slightly confused with another game there. Actually, the guy, well, he kept flashing back to the guy, but that was the one where the guy kept running away. But we'll talk about that game in a bit. But
Oh, right. Apologies there.
that's fine though. I mean, it is hard, like as I say, to keep up with all these games. So you then had Goodbye Volcano High, which safe to say doesn't really look like our sort of game. um, yeah, it was kind of a Life is Strange emo vibes, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
Very
saying that, we loved Life is Strange. I really enjoyed the first one. I
true.
mean, the second one was a bit all that, but yeah, I really enjoyed the first Life is Strange, which is very kind of, sort of emo-esque,
That's
isn't
true,
it?
actually, and it wasn't massively relatable because we're older, we're grown-ass men, playing as a teenage, kind of girl going through girl troubles in school, and that's why Life is Strange is so weird. But then I suppose Life is Strange has a very dark undercurrent to it, and that's kind of what makes it so awesome. So yeah,
Mm.
you can't judge a book by its cover, but yeah. But then there was Oddworld Soulstorm, which looked like was basically another Oddworld game, right? Another um,
Yeah, looked
former.
like it was trying to recapture the sort of magic of Abe's Odyssey from back
Yeah,
in the day, which I feel all of the Oddworld games try and do. They try and sort of recapture the magic that game was. Because I remember playing it at the time when that game came out, and I think you did as well. And so we've obviously got fond memories of it, and everyone kind of remembers Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey. So, and I think they've kind of, it's been a bit hit and miss ever since then. They've not really brought out anything that's knocked it out of the park in
no,
regards of Oddworld.
I think you're right. Yeah. So there was Ghostwire Tokyo, set in Tokyo, like a first-person adventure. Kind of had horror themes to it. Again, not too much there. It looked quite chaotic, really, didn't it?
Yeah, look quite interesting. I mean, they went for this sort of Junji Ito kind of horror. Um, I apologise, I mispronounced that. So they've kind of got a lot of like headless kind of like schoolgirls and business people, sort of suited people with no heads and stuff. And it looked a bit, yeah, like you say, very horror-esque.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There was another couple of games. There's a few that I'll kind of rattle through here. There was a game called Jet, which kind of didn't really show too much. A game called Godfall, which looked like a bit of a hack and slash fighting game. There was a game called Solar Ash, which is almost like a platform game, but she seemed to be roller skating again. Not much kind of shown there. And then another couple of kind of arty kind of platformy adventure games, Astro's Playroom and Little Devil Inside, and then a new NBA title released as well. And kudos to you, Dan, if you know the NBA player, because I can't remember who it was now. I'm not an NBA fan.
No, I don't. I'm not very big on that, I'm afraid. But I'm sure that some people would be straight away, oh, that's, this, that, or the other.
Yeah,
And it would obviously, I mean, it looked impressive, but it's the
yeah,
same with all those kind of EA, FIFA and,
yeah.
and whatnot. they all look really good.
They do, and they will sell. You know, they'll absolutely sell regardless. You know, these games are massive, especially NBA in America. You know, it's obviously gigantic. So yeah, absolutely. So and then there was a couple of other games. So we had Bug Snacks and
Bloody bug snacks.
oh man, yeah, we had a bit of a laugh there. That was a trippy game. I felt like I was on acid. And then there was a game called Pragmata, which actually that game actually interested me slightly. It wasn't quite kind of. It's probably the last game on our list for the games shout outs in general before we move on to the big stuff. But it kind of interests me a little bit. I don't know about you, but if you remember, it was that sci-fi futuristic game. So it essentially looked like a spaceman was walking around a a kind of a desolate, destroyed Earth, and he had kind of like a young girl as his sidekick, and they kind of the planet seemed to start twisting in time, kind of thing, and then all of a sudden they decided they're going to get the fuck out of Dodge, and then they kind of disappeared up into space. I don't know.
Yeah, that had a cat in it as well, didn't it?
It did have a cat in it, a lot of cat themes. So obviously you're going to buy it, so that's that done.
Brilliant.
But no, that game looked kind of, again, it was only cinematic, but it looked like it could be a cool concept. I mean, a lot of these games, you have a main character and then a little side character who kind of helps you along the way, and a lot of those games do tend to do well. I mean, you know, there are plenty of them out there, and yeah, it'd be interesting to see to keep an eye on that one for sure.
Yeah, that one definitely did sort of interest me. I must admit, I did like the style of it. I just finished recently playing Deliver Us the Moon on the Game Pass, and it had kind of very similar vibes to that, even though there's not as big a production value in Deliver Us to the Moon as there is in this one. But it could still be a really interesting game.
Agreed, absolutely, yeah. Okay, cool. So all right, well that's that. And now let's since they were all kind of games announced, we have no idea what's going to happen with them. Let's face it, they could end up just going for free. They could flop. They could be much bigger, and we could be doing our own podcast.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point, actually, because I think a lot of them, I said to you that if they became free on like PlayStation Plus or whatnot, I probably would pick a lot of them up, or at least give them a crack on there, you know. So if there's trials or demos or whatnot, I would be interested in giving them a little bash.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about what we've all been waiting for, the big game announcements. So the thing that we're kind of, the only thing we really wanted from the actual reveal itself was to talk about the games, and we wanted to see games, and we wanted to be excited and be wowed and all of that kind of stuff. And whilst I'd say that it wasn't the most exciting of announcements in the world, the actual PS5 reveal, there were some games that looked awesome, and also some games which we're really looking forward to, right? So yeah, there was
most of which are sequels to games that we liked previously. So that's probably why a couple of these are in this sort of greatest hits collection at the end.
For sure, yeah, exactly. And I think it's worth noting as well that actually a lot of these console reveals, they're always the same. You know, they're more focused around the reveal of the console itself, which makes sense. But then the third party publishers, they want to do their own thing. You know, there's no way that, say, Bethesda is going to announce Elder Scrolls 6, for example, during a PS4 launch. They're going to want to do their own conference PS5 launch. They're going to want to do their own conference dedicated to it, right? So a lot of these games, unless they've been announced already, or you just know they're going to be coming out, certainly the AAA ones, then you probably won't see them pop up in this sort of conference anyway. But regardless, there was some cool stuff that popped up. So firstly, and this was quite early on, they announced what looked like and I've not actually played the first one of this yet, but they announced a Spider-Man sequel, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the previous one to Insomniacs, I think it was, to their Marvel Spider-Man come out a couple of years ago. I think it wasn't that long ago actually, which
No, it wasn't.
made us question whether this was a DLC
Yeah.
for for that one, or whether it's a brand new one. It has been confirmed as a sequel where you play as Miles Morales, who kind of takes over as being Spider-Man from Peter Parker. So it's an interesting concept in that regard. It's a good excuse to kind of reboot it, because that's always the thing with sort of sequels in games. Your character reverts back to being shit again with no abilities and no skills and that. So it's always a good idea to do something like this, or explain it in a good way that isn't amnesia, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, really enjoyed the previous Spider-Man. It was essentially, it was kind of Batman Arkham, the Arkham games. They were really good. Really enjoyed all of them, especially, you know, Arkham Asylum is absolutely brilliant. And this kind of felt like a Spider-Man Arkham game, you know. So it played exactly like it and had a lot of similar aspects, and it also borrowed a lot of aspects from the sort of the Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3 that come out on the PS2 and the Xbox 360 sort of early on, sort of those sort of generations to gaming. And yeah, no, I am really sort of looking forward to that, because I really did enjoy the previous one. They done a good job of making sort of some of the side missions interesting. There was a lot of collectibles and sort of stuff like that, but of course you unlock new costumes for Spider-Man, and they had all loads of major villains in there. It would be interesting to see what kind of villains they dig up, because that was always a good thing within those Arkham games, is that they always dug up some kind of unique villain that you've maybe heard of, or maybe they've completely not touched on, you know. And it's kind of interesting to see what kind of Spider-Man villains they'll bring out. For me, that is one of the sort of main aspects of the game.
Yeah, well, it's yeah, exactly. The bad guys are always the kind of the best thing about you know, these types of games, aren't they? As you say, you only have to look at the Batman games to kind of see that. I mean, you know, Batman is actually, he looks cool, but he's pretty wooden, you know. When you look at and then when you look at, you know, in the Arkham games, or you look at, you know, the Joker, you look at Killer Croc, and you look at Scarecrow, how amazingly well they're done, uniquely well they're done. You know, they are absolutely the main things. And I want to touch on what you said about the sequel. Actually, I didn't know that. That's a really, I agree with you. It's really hard when you create a sequel and the character's going to be kind of crap again, stats are going to be reset, and all that kind of stuff. Because you want to cater for new players, you need to kind of come up with an idea. And we were talking about in the Final Fantasy VII remake, when they make the second episode, where you're going to have really high level and higher powered characters with a lot of mastered materia. So where do they go?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't want to be learning Fire and Blizzard again. I'm fucking
no,
done with that. You know, I want the top-notch level magic, because that's what I'm used to now. And you know,
100%.
other games have tried to do this in the past in unique ways. Metal Gear 2, you had Raiden as the main character, and that was because the director wanted to avoid this kind of like, oh, he's Solid Snake, he already knows what he's doing, so why the hell have I got to train him up again? So, and Mass Effect 2, your character died at the end, so he dies right at the beginning, and then he kind of gets brought back to life. So that's how they kind of explain it there. But for games like Assassin's Creed, you know, you go from Ezio in Assassin's Creed 2, and then in Brotherhood, you've lost all your abilities, and it's kind of a bit like, why can't he do fucking plunging attacks and stuff now? You know, I've learned all that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So it's quite a unique way of doing it. I really like that, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So definitely. I mean, I want to play Spider-Man. Admittedly, not played it yet. But is it a game you think you'll pick up?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even the last one, I actually borrowed a PlayStation to play that one. That was actually just before I bought my PlayStation 4.
Gotcha.
So I actually went out of my way to get it and play it, because I was really looking forward to it.
Sure, yeah, great. Okay, wicked. So there was also Hitman 3, and admittedly it was only a cinematic, but something that surprised us was it seems like that Hitman 3 is going to be the conclusion of a trilogy. I didn't even realize I was playing a trilogy. I don't
Yeah,
know.
the story's a bit convoluted, isn't it? It's a bit all over the
Yeah,
place, and you know, real hardcore fans of it, you might know what's going on. But I've had to read up about it to find out what's actually going on. It's kind of drip fed the story. Of course, this is in this list purely for our benefit. I imagine a lot of people are not going to be interested in this, maybe because they didn't play the other two, or maybe they got sick of like the episodicness of the first one.
yeah,
Didn't down too well, but for us personally it worked, and then the second one came out and I enjoyed it, but I didn't have the same kind of magic that I had when I was playing it episodically, because I'd play it solidly for a month, or like 2 weeks, and then I'd leave it for 2 weeks, and then the new episode would come out with a new level, and then I'd play that solidly for 2
yeah.
weeks. So it did keep the longevity of the game going.
Yeah, it was a really cool idea actually, and they've kind of done away with that now, which is, fair enough. I'm sure there's people that would prefer the whole game, but it's you really have to plunge, a very long time if you want to perfect the game. I mean, you can complete the game fairly quickly, but
Mm.
any of the new Hitman games, but if you want to go for all of the achievements and you want to go for all of the
Challenges and all that.
challenges, yeah, exactly. It's going to take too long, and that's why episodically I thought it worked well. But regardless, Hitman 3, I mean, again, nothing really. It looks exactly the same as
It does.
the
That
previous
is
one,
probably
doesn't
our
it?
biggest qualm, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. But then, at the same time, it's all about the levels, isn't it? It's all about these unique, awesome looking levels, and hopefully,
They showed us one, didn't they? In this, it was Dubai. It looked like it was
yeah,
the enormous building. I can't remember its blooming name. Like the tallest building in the world. And it looks like it's set there, or a fictional version of that.
yeah,
Kind of thing in Dubai. So that in itself is already quite unique from the other levels that have already featured.
yeah,
I think the levels are really what sells the Hitman games, because they're so unique from each other, and they really do a good job. I think it is. They really do a good job of making each level completely different from the last.
they do, and your point's proven with the skyscraper. I mean, this is nailed on that there's going to be a couple of awesome deaths throwing people off a skyscraper. I mean, wow, what a way to go! Cool. So there was also a big announcement for, again, for mine and your benefit, but quite coincidentally, like I said, we've been, we did a podcast episode on Dark Souls, the trilogy. Now, the Dark Souls trilogy came off of the back of a game called Demon's Souls, and one thing that was announced yesterday was that Demon's Souls is going to be released as a remaster. Did you? What is that? Is that what it is?
Well, it didn't actually specifically say, but
Right.
I'm pretty sure it is a remaster. It didn't have
Of
Demon
course.
Souls 2. It didn't have anything like that, and it did look like it did look similar graphics to how it was back in the day, but obviously polished up and that. So it looks like they're giving it the Dark Souls remaster treatment, but with
Yeah.
Demon Souls. And let's not forget, I'd just like to point this out, that it's not Demon Souls, it's Demon's Souls, which is really awkward to say.
Especially for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
it does. I feel like I'm just going the whole time.
yeah, it's just really strange kind of a very strange name. I suppose it makes sense if you actually think of the words itself, demons, souls. Yeah, but at the same time, demon souls wouldn't actually make much sense. But it is just really awkward to say. But regardless, I think that's a game that me and you would love to play, being big fans of the Soulsborne series now, and starting to, you know, really discover why, in the last few years, why they are considered, some of the best games, ever released. Naturally, Demon Souls is something that we're gonna want to play. So I'm really looking forward to that coming out.
Yeah, that itself will raise a few other questions. Obviously, technology has moved on, at least with some of the game mechanics. So obviously, let's say Bloodborne introduced the fact that you can have a password. So when you summon someone in, you can, teamed up with your friends, which transferred into Dark Souls 3. And then when they released the Dark Souls remaster, it featured in that as well, which was never in the original. So you can imagine that Demon's Souls is going to have that added in. But it makes me curious about any other issues like that people might have had sort of transitioning. People who played Dark Souls 1 who then went and played Demon's Souls might not have liked it because of this, that or the other. It will be interesting to see if they've still got some of those features in, or whether they've sort of edited it and changed it in any way from the original.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is that Dark Souls did translate really well to a remastered version. They did do that really well. There was a lot of problems with frame rate and lag in certain areas. I know that Blighttown in Dark Souls is considered an extremely tough area because you get a lot of drop of frame rate and a lot of lagging going on. And in the remaster, they really sorted out and ironed out a lot of those problems. I didn't notice any of that. That I know that they are aware of any kind of technical issues or kind of potential problems porting these games over is going to have. So hopefully they're on what you're saying and they're kind of on it, and they will sort those things.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, so really looking forward to that. And when Demon's Souls does come out, there's 100% going to be some streams on Bearded Robot of me and Danny playing that. So
Yeah, ironically, actually, Demon's Souls, what they showed yesterday was just a small little clip here of not really any gameplay footage. It was more cinematic as well. I mean, sure, it was in the game's sort of graphics, but they didn't actually show the character running around and fighting and that. And we actually said, for a lot of these a lot of these teasers that they showed, that we just kind of brushed over it just because that is what they showed. So it kind of, this has got the weight to carry behind it, the fact that we have put it in this sort of, we're buzzing about it, and they showed so little of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's the sort of thing we've been ripping other games for doing.
But no, because it's Soulsborne.
Yeah,
We'll let
it's
it
all right
slide.
because it's Soulsborne. Yeah, yeah. Maybe we're the bad guy. But yeah, so moving on to a game that we kind of both and this list has been kind of defined for us by both of us. We've got very similar taste in games. But this next game that we've kind of included, so it was a game called Deathloop, and yeah, it seemed to look like it was a one-man survival game in a Dishonored style engine. And I haven't played Dishonored, but I know you have, Dan. So explain a little bit more what that means.
Yeah, no, I love the Dishonored games. I think they're brilliant. I mean, you watch people on YouTube and they're just so skilled at it. It's a type of game that if you can put the time in and become skilled at it, it can just look amazing. And this had a lot of those aspects, like. For example, a character in this Deathloop had a very similar ability to a character in Dishonored, where you can put a little marker down and teleport to that marker. And so I'm not sure, it's not the same style, because Dishonored was very sort of like steampunk kind of aspects and whatnot, whereas this looks like it's sort of a modern day setting. It had a lot of interesting gun sort of gameplay mechanics. So it's just to shoot them up, but the way he's using his abilities and sliding over things, it looks like you could really, you're going to look up on YouTube in a couple of years of people doing these amazing runs of just making it look like a John Wick movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it is made by the same developers as Dishonored as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's published by Bethesda. I'm not entirely sure if it is made by the same people,
Yeah.
but it looks like it's got the same engine.
Yeah,
And
sweet.
obviously Bethesda did it, which makes me curious whether it is going to be a multiplayer focused game, because it looks like it's one person versus another person, but then there's loads of bots around, loads of enemies. But I'm not sure if that's just for the story purpose, or
Yeah,
whether it is actually You know,
Yeah,
a
so
sort of
I have a theory on that. I mean, so yeah, so just, if you haven't watched it, it essentially showed a guy who was going around a kind of what looked like a town, and he was, killing all these people wearing masks who were all, it looked like they were all trying to kill him, so it looked kind of, looked very kind of manhunt in that aspect. He was the one survivor and trying to kind of survive, and he was killing all of them, and it looked like he was constantly having to live that same loop. And then, I mean, it could be, Dan, that he is kind of stuck in this kind of death loop in inverted commas,
yeah.
and there are real people kind of entering the game, Westworld style, and they're there to kind of track him down and kill him, but he's killing them. Obviously not really killing them in this kind of looped digital world or whatever. But then he's
Mm.
also being tracked by a rival assassin too. And what was interesting is right at the end, they showed gameplay of that rival assassin. So that told me this is a player trying to hunt a player and a player trying to hunt a player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this
Very,
whole death loop thing does give a good reason for you to be replaying matches, like
yeah,
replaying the same level over and over, the same sort of scene and that.
yeah,
Um, but it does make me wonder, because obviously Bethesda are very infamous for making single player focused games. They've come out and said that they are predominantly focusing on single player games. I know they did Fallout 76, which was multiplayer focused and whatnot, and that kind of crashed and burnt a bit. So I don't know if they've been stung by that to actually continue to move on to multiplayer stuff. So that is really my biggest qualm. It's still up in the air for me whether it is single player or multiplayer focused.
yeah. Well, we will see, but it looked quite cool either way. With that Dishonored style engine and that kind of quite cool kind of Deathloop aspect to it. It seemed quite intriguing.
Yeah, it all seems like it's either cats or repeating the same bit over and over again this year.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, okay. So moving on swiftly, we got. Sorry, were you about to say something there?
No, 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 no.
That's cool.
I've finished.
So moving on swiftly then. So we've got two games left, and both look amazing in their own right. So first was Horizon 2 Forbidden West. So that looks like it's going to be a sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. Again, a game that I haven't actually played, but it was only a cinematic, wasn't it, Dan? But that was enough to kind of whet your appetite, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think they showed some gameplay, but because it didn't have the HUD or anything like that, it was hard to gauge whether it actually was or not. But I mean, the graphics in the original were fantastic. I mean, I played it and I loved it. My biggest qualm with it was the sort of side missions were a bit by the numbers, and it was kind of a bit, there were so many of them, it was a bit long-winded. And
Yeah.
I played so many games in the last sort of 5-10 years where I'm crafting arrows for a bow and arrow, and it's just getting a bit tedious now. I'm a bit sick of it. But having said that, I absolutely loved Horizon Zero Dawn. I loved the lore of it. I actually, to be honest, I found Aloy's story, the main character, I actually found her story not overly interesting. The actual story I found more engaging was the story of how the world came to be, and they kind of drip fed that in the way that as you sort of progressed Aloy's story, you sort of learned little bits as you went along, and it all come up to this big reveal. At the same point, her story came to this dramatic crescendo. So they've done it really well in that aspect, and that's kind of made me wonder where it's going to go from here, because obviously we know the story of the world, we know what happened and how the world came to be. They're going to have to do a decent Aloy story for it to actually engage me. But gameplay wise, it was really fun, taking down these enormous sort of dinosaur / animal robot things was great fun.
Yeah, no, it does. It looks amazing. I've always thought it looks amazing. I saw a bit of you playing it at the time as well, so I know there'll be a gigantic game, and yeah, I guess lots more to come on that. Um, so yeah, so moving on to last but not least, so to kind of build this up, I would say that it's probably one of our most eagerly anticipated titles, coming out. It's Resident Evil 8. So specifically Resident Evil 8 Village, it's called. And so Resident Evil 7 was a new. It was almost kind of like a new horizon for Resident Evil, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a reboot, because
Yeah.
Capcom kind of have this thing of where they milk Resident Evil into the absolute ground, and then they think, oh, you know what, let's purge it and start again. And they did that with the original Resident Evil style after Code Veronica, I believe it was. They then purged it and brought out Resident Evil 4, which granted started off in a village, which we'll come back to in a moment. And then after that, they milked that into Resident Evil 6, which was a bit of an abomination. And then they thought, you know what, we'll reboot it again. And then they did Resident Evil 7, which I'd like to point out, they hit the nail on the head with the sort of name of it, because obviously it's actually called Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. And in Japan, I believe the game is called Biohazard. So in this one, they called it Biohazard 7 Resident Evil. So they kind of done it well of bringing it all back. And not to mention the evil, you've got the EVIL, and they've kind of done it well to make it look like a 7, and they've kind of milked that again for Resident Evil 8 Village by having the first bit of village, the VILL, to form the Roman numeral for 8. So they've done quite good with that.
Yeah, they did, and sometimes you wonder whether they come up with a name before they come up with a concept. I'm sure that's not the case. Christ, please.
Well, it does make you wonder, though, don't it?
Please don't let that be the case.
It's 9, isn't it? So it's IX, I believe.
Yeah.
So they've got to do pretty good to figure out something involving IX.
How do you spell xylophone? But yeah, no. So yeah, Resident Evil 9 xylophone. Terrible. But yeah, regardless,
I'm not buying it.
Yeah, no, I'm not buying it. But it did look really cool. I mean, when they kind of first showed the kind of the creepy kind of forest and a kind of story going on, I think it was a woman telling her kid a story, wasn't it? And then they, it kind of showed, walking through a kind of forest and then ending up in some random kind of dude's hut. And
yeah, they didn't actually announce that it was Resident Evil 8.
Exactly.
They kind of left that for the very end. So we started watching it thinking, oh, this looks quite interesting. And then I think you said, oh, this looks like the type of game that, we'd play together. Probably you would play,
Yeah.
So it'll be like, brilliant. So I've got this to look forward to. And
yeah, and but interestingly, what I think I may have said, hang on, this isn't Resident Evil, is it? And you were like, hang on, I think I just saw an umbrella symbol.
Yeah, they threw that in there pretty sluggishly, probably for fans to pick up on.
Yeah.
There was a quick flash. They kept doing quick flashes of all like insides of castles and the outsides of villages and whatnot. And they done one quick flash of, I'm not sure, I think it might be a table, like a little pedestal, and in it is the engraved umbrella logo, and blink and you'll miss it. But yeah, I saw it and I was like, oh shit, this is Resident Evil.
Yeah. So Umbrella are the corporation essentially, which have kind of created this world, haven't they? Without want to try, and that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, they're kind of like the pharmaceutical company that's kind of caused all these outbreaks and all this sort of shit to happen.
Yeah.
They're the sort of fingers in all the pies. But what's really interesting is the fact that they've kind of brought it into this village scenario again, almost like number 4. So they've kind of they haven't rebooted it because it's the same style as number 7, first person. When he's in the cabin, he's got his gun and you can sort of see it's all gameplay, and then something breaks through and grabs the old man, which is kind of classic Resident Evil style. And it's really interesting to see where it goes. Yeah, one of my biggest things of it is, one thing I actually didn't notice the first time around, I had to rewatch it, is that you are playing as Ethan again, who is the hero from number 7, and it looks like Chris Redfield shoots Ethan's girlfriend in this trailer, who the whole point of Resident Evil was to rescue her and get her back. And the canon ending, there is 2 endings, but the canon ending is to get her back. So it seems interesting that Chris Redfield shoots her, you know, in this game. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that story.
Yeah,
But
that's quite
at the,
savage.
at
I
the
mean,
very
did she appear in a zombified state? Did you notice?
No, she looked relatively normal. Looked like, because they kept showing a shot of her, I don't know, doing the washing up or sitting by the fire. I can't remember, or maybe just in the kitchen, and it looked all like it was all sort of modern and recent and that, and maybe that is where the story picks up from.
Yeah.
Ethan and her back at home, and then Chris comes in and, I don't know, kills her. Maybe he could be the antagonist of this story, because he was working for a company called Blue Umbrella at the end of Resident Evil 7. And it's unsure whether they are a rival pharmaceutical company or something to do with Umbrella. Maybe he has switched sides. It's hard to believe, but again, it's out there.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I'm really invested and interested in that. I mean, why would Chris turn up in someone's home and shoot Ethan's wife again? You know, a character that we can really resonate with and that we kind of
Mm.
loved in Resi 7, and you know, and like you said, the whole point of the actual game was to save his wife, and then Chris Redfield turns up, who is again kind of one of our heroes from previous games from the series, and he
Yeah.
kind
I
of
mean,
comes in. I mean, he's
sorry,
not
I
a
was just
bad
going to
guy, is he?
say. No, he's always been a goodie. I mean, even in the DLC of number 7, he was a goodie. You played as
Yeah,
him for a section, a more action orientated segment of
of course.
the game. But one thing that I would like to point out is right at the beginning, it says something like "witness the end of his story." And, you know, that is literally at the beginning of the teaser. We saw that before we even knew it was Resident Evil. So by then, we've forgotten all about that. I've only noticed through rewatching it that, yeah, if it says that at the beginning, something along those lines, like see the end of his story.
When you
And I'm
say
not
his,
sure.
are we talking Ethan?
No, I'm not sure. This is my point. I'm not sure
Right,
whether they're referring to Ethan or they could
right.
possibly referring to Chris Redfield, because obviously he was the protagonist for Resident Evil the original, and he's featured in multiple games like Code Veronica number 5, number 6. You know, so it is interesting to see whether it will be the end of his story or are they referring to Ethan's story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's really cool. And I think again, you reference Resident Evil 4 and the fact that it's kind of very villagey. It's very kind of crazy people with pitchforks and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see if it's that kind of style again. You know, are you facing off the people that live in the village, and are they going to be in that sort of similar state again, like Resident Evil 4? We saw that there was what appeared to be a werewolf in the trailer as well, which again,
Yeah, that's quite unique to the
yeah,
series.
yeah, absolutely. But it does look awesome. We played Resident Evil 7, and we streamed the majority of it on Bearded Robot, and we'll do the same again with Resident Evil 8 Village, and I think that we'll probably play it together. I certainly won't be buying it because I'm too scared, but I'll definitely. I'll definitely watch. I'll definitely get to Danny together with Danny, and then we'll kind of play it together. We have a tendency to do that with these types of games. So yeah, I'm really invested in that, and I'm really interested in that Chris Redfield Ethan dynamic, because that's really quite savage.
Yeah, this has kind of inspired me to maybe one day we should do a Resident Evil podcast. I'd love to do it.
Yeah,
But
for sure. Yeah, no, I'd absolutely be all over that. So yeah, that was it. So that was every game. So we have mentioned every single game that was mentioned in the PS5 reveal. We've mentioned the PS5 itself. We've talked about the accessories. We've talked about our qualms, the things we like, the things we don't like, all of that kind of stuff. And that's kind of been it, really. So I guess it kind of, I mean, it's over. I guess it's over to you, Microsoft, now, right? They still need to do a conference to talk about the Xbox Series X, to talk about the exclusives, to show some gameplay, partner up with some publishers and stuff like that, and we kind of need to see that. And I suppose that moves me on to, as it stands, I mean, we can only really buy one console. Yeah, if you can afford both consoles, fair play. Can you buy me another one? But I will say I can personally only buy one console. at the moment, I would, in an ideal world, I'd probably just continue on with Xbox. I've got all my achievements on there. I've got my friends list on there. I've got my longevity on there and stuff like that. I prefer the controller, all that kind of stuff that we've kind of mentioned. But I'm, like Dan mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I'm up for jumping ship. Of course, I am. Has the PS5 reveal conference convinced me to jump ship to PS5? No, if I'm going to be honest, it hasn't. But I'm also of the opinion that there's only so much they can do with a reveal conference. Like I said, all that stuff about publishers wanting to show off their own games and not just piggyback on a PlayStation conference. You know, they'll want to do their own stuff. So there will be a lot of things, you know, coming out on PS5 and on both consoles, which might make me switch either way. So it's a bit of an on the fence one at the moment, but I'm leaning still towards Xbox Series X, but I'm yet to be convinced by Microsoft yet. We still need to hear from them. So what about you, Dan? Where are you leaning at the
Yeah,
moment?
no, I feel exactly the same. I don't know. I might switch over to PS5 just because I felt like I missed out on a lot of exclusives from
Sure.
PS4. But it's hard to say because Microsoft haven't really revealed too many games that are like, oh, I've got to get that. Of course, games like Resident Evil 8 is obviously going to be on across platforms. So some of these games that we've mentioned that we're looking forward to can be bought on either. So that isn't going to really make a difference, thankfully. It's just some of them, Horizon, Spider-Man, and that are the sort of the ones that could, you know, change my mind to make me switch over.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. And then you know, you have a lot of games that are coming out. We may even throw Demon Souls into that. We're not sure yet. Obviously, Final Fantasy VII remake will the second episode will be an exclusive, we think, for now. And then, of course, you've got anything that comes out in the Soulsborne series. So if a Bloodborne 2 is revealed, for example, then we're not playing that on the Xbox. So again, it kind of starts, you know, putting your eye towards the Sony side of the table. So I think there's a lot of water to travel under the bridge yet. You know, we've got the Microsoft conference still to come. We've got all of these publishers which will presumably want to do a lot of the stuff they would have done at E3, and then naturally we can then kind of make a decision. Luckily, we've got another presumably 5 months to kind of decide, you know, at the earliest. So yeah, we'll see, won't we?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, of course, that's to say if we are going to buy one instantly on launch, if there's enough to carry it as well. So only time will tell at this stage. But early on, I think it was overall it was a reasonably good conference. You know, they showed a lot that was interesting and a lot that wasn't, and they showed the actual console itself. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, just before we kind of sign off, I just want to sign off with something a little bit fun. So I posted on an Instagram story a picture of both the consoles, the Xbox One Series X and the PS5, and asked people to choose which one they like the look of better. And so far, coming towards the end, 57% in favour of the PS5, 43% in favour of the Xbox Series X look and
That's
feel
close
only.
numbers, though.
It's close numbers, and obviously I just said look and feel, and nobody would be biased enough to be a fanboy and choose the other one, surely. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
we don't know. But personally, I don't know if I asked you. Did I ask you what kind of one you preferred the look of? I think you did say the X, right?
Yeah, I think so. But again, it's so many different factors to think about as well. I hate all this. Just can't we all just get along?
Yeah. Oh, mate, that's a conversation for a different episode. Can't we all just merge and make an ultimate gaming console, whatever? But anyway, it's been great to speak to you, Dan. It was good to watch it with you last night as well.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, and I hope everyone's enjoyed it. If you have any issues with anything we've said, please call us out. We'd love to have a little debate with you. If there's anything,
definitely. Let us know. Let us know what your favourite games were as well. What you're buzzing for. You know?
100%, yeah. And if you've got any predictions of any kind of games coming out, what side of the fence are you sitting on as well? Are you Xbox Series X? Are you PS5? It'll be interesting. Or are you PC and you just hate consoles? Well, we'd love to hear from you. And of course, before we go, if you're watching this on YouTube, drop us a like. It's amazing. Subscribe to the channel. That would be really good. And let us know if you've enjoyed listening to it on Spotify as well. Feedback is everything. We really enjoy hearing the feedback, and it spurs us on to make another episode. So yeah, that's it. That's it from me then. Cheers everyone, and signing off.